Hi friends, it's Brittany at Ink and Papyrus and welcome back to my channel. In a recent video, we took that brown packaging that it seems to come in every package I get these days, and we have made it into a lovely fall masterboard. The brown packaging makes a lovely neutral base and pretty much allows for you to do whatever you want with it. In the last video, we started by distressing the packaging with various inks, stamp pads, stamping, stenciling, gelatos, paint. I think if you can think of it, we distressed or designed with it. And we came up with some absolutely lovely pieces of packaging. Now, what to do with that packaging, of course, is the million-dollar question. And in this video, I'm going to be creating some stunning pieces for my journal just with this packaging. If you want to see all of the techniques and things that I use to distress the packaging, I will refer you above or in the description box. I will link that video. So let's start really basic and make some really pretty journaling cards. Here I have chosen a piece of packaging with repeating patterns, and I think that if I cut the packaging carefully, I should be able to get one leaf print on each journaling card, and I think that would probably be the perfect size for a journaling card. You all know how much I hate measuring, so I'm simply going to cut up this cardstock into the size I want my journaling cards to be. I will glue the brown packaging down to the cardstock and then just trim around the edges. In addition to these journaling cards, I'm going to be showing you a few other different pieces, very simple, very quick, that you can make for your journals. They are all going to be very kind of beginner friendly. They're all very simple and they all start with this simple brown packaging. I love doing tutorials and videos, spotlighting a craft supply that is either fairly cheap or free that most of us just have laying around the house. I do think, by the way, that these leaf prints look amazing on this brown packaging. I simply took a stamp pad, stamped it down, took a leaf and coated it with a thin layer of white gesso, made a print of the leaf over the stamp, smushed that print down really good, and once it dried, I went around the print with some gelatos and gold gilding wax to really hopefully make the leaf the emphasis, the focal point, and went ahead and did that several more times. I do like creating simple little designs that I can repeat all over the brown packaging to make it more like a masterboard. I think those lend themselves really well to the kind of projects that I like to create, and it gives you a ton of decorated supply to work with. So once I'm done gluing the brown packaging to the cardstock and trimming around, I am going to run these through the sewing machine. I recently did get a new sewing machine. It's a Brother after my last one pooped out, and I was really excited to try a couple of different leaf stitches that my previous sewing machine did not have. And I'm sure you can imagine the leaf stitching took a lot longer than everything else. I just ended up doing the leaf stitching up top and then went ahead and did the straight stitch on the other three sides. As I'm sure you'll be able to tell from this video, sewing is not my sport. I simply do it just because I think that the way stitching looks in a journal, I just love it. I think it gives things a more polished, sometimes depending on the sewing job, homemade look. And let's face it, there are just certain things in journals that are done much better with sewing than gluing, and so that's why I do it. I am no expert by any stretch, so if you see any terrible technique throughout the course of this video, feel free to drop me a comment below and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I have learned some lessons along the way, especially as I tried to troubleshoot my last sewing machine before it sadly eventually ended up in the sewing machine graveyard. So I will try and share any tips and tricks I've learned along the way, at least from a beginner's perspective, to hopefully help those of you who are just starting along your sewing journey. We were all there once, and some of us haven't progressed much far past the beginner stage, if you know what I mean. It's one of those things. I mean, I sew it, I do exactly what I need to do. It serves its purpose. I'm never going to be somebody who can actually sew something that one would ever dream of wearing or parading around in. Anyway, back to the leaf masterboard. So this is the masterboard we created together in the last video. Here I have done a little bit of jazzing up the brown packaging with some white gesso, and then I went ahead and gessoed over the leaves themselves, glued them down to the brown packaging, went over them with some Mod Podge and some gold gilding wax, and here we are. I have to tell you, the leaves, the older the leaves are, the more dried out they become, the harder they are to work with. As I sit here sewing them, I am kind of regretting not sewing them earlier as soon as the Mod Podge and the glue dried. I did go ahead and lengthen my stitch a little bit to try and limit the number of perforations in the leaf. The leaves were already dry since I did this several days ago. Gluing the leaves down, that is. And the closer the perforations are, the more likely your leaves are to break. I did have breakage of a couple of the leaves, and I went ahead and just took some white glue, some wet white glue, and glued those little pieces of the leaves back down to the packaging, and that seemed to work okay. So I decided to make a journal cover out of this leaf collage masterboard, and the reasons for sewing this was twofold. So first, I love the way the sewing looks. I think it makes the project look more cohesive, handmade, especially since it's going to be on a journal cover. I love that look. Second of all, though, despite gluing these leaves down, some of the edges have peeled up off the paper a little bit. So I wanted to make sure all the leaves in their entirety were tacked down to the page. If the leaves are curling up, they're eventually going to break, especially if this is the journal cover that's going to be handled and moved around quite a bit. And to make things easy, I am just going to alter up this box I already have that I think is about the size of a journal cover that I want. If you're unfamiliar with this process, all I'm doing here is taking an extra piece of chipboard in the middle as my spine, and I am binding the front cover to the spine and the back cover to the spine, and I do that with Tyvek tape. If you do not know how to make a basic junk journal cover, I will include an example of that above and in the description box. Okay, so there are a couple of ways you can go about doing this. Normally, when I'm applying fabric or some kind of paper over the cover, I leave excess on the edges and I fold those edges to the other side of the cover. I fold them over and glue them down or sew them. Because this is a leaf collage, I think if I leave excess and fold the excess over the cover, I think those leaves are going to crack. So for that very reason, you will see me measuring the leaf collage masterboard pieces to only be the exact size and no longer than the front and the back cover. And it's really not hard to do. It just entails placing the collage masterboard directly over the cover and making a couple of marks where you are going to cut the masterboard down. Once I secure the masterboard to the front and the back cover with some tacky glue, I am just going to simply cut off the excess with my scissors. Once that glue is dry, I'm just going to come in with a zigzag stitch and sew around the very edges of the cover. I love the way this looks. I have to tell you, I definitely recommend securing the collage masterboard with some kind of adhesive. Because of the leaves, it did not lay totally flat, and had I only sewed around the edges of the cover and not tacked it down first, there would have been a lot of bubbling and wrinkling, probably too much for even the most excited person about having a distressed look. It would have just looked like it wasn't glued down properly. It did take several passes through under the sewing machine to really get everything tacked down. Like I said, there was definitely a lot of bubbling at first with the brown packaging. It was just hard to get it to lay totally flat because of the leaves. You will see a couple of times I have issues with my sewing machine, and this is where I would like to offer a little piece of advice from not the wise, definitely a beginner here, but whenever, especially if you're sewing paper and you're sewing things that you have already glued and maybe were not the best, most patient crafter, and maybe ran it through the sewing machine before it was totally dry and maybe gummed it up a little bit. If you're having problems, first things first, honestly, just change your sewing needle. A lot of people will tell you that they will change their sewing machine or their sewing machine needle after basically any major project when they're done. And I think that's such a good piece of advice. You may not know what is wrong with your machine, and sometimes, especially if it gets gummed up, the needle will bend, and even if it doesn't look bent to the naked eye, that could be the issue. The other thing I will do when I'm not really sure what the problem is just rethread the machine. Sometimes, even if it looks like you threaded the machine right, the tension wasn't right, maybe the hook wasn't all the way up, maybe there was something else weird going on, but when in doubt, just rethread the machine. It's such an easy fix. I can't tell you how many times where it seems like something was wrong. I couldn't figure out what it was, and it looks like the machine was threaded correctly, and it must not have been, because as soon as I took it down and rethreaded the thread, everything was hunky-dory again. Also, when you're pulling the thread out because you want to rethread and you're pulling it out from the top, make sure you cut from the top and pull the thread out from below instead of pulling it back from above, because you can ruin the discs that way, or at least that's what I've been told. Maybe that's a myth, but I think it's probably just worth doing to be on the safe side. Once the cover is fully stitched up and everything is trimmed, I am just going to take some black cardstock and line the inside cover with it. I don't really want the inside cover to just be all of these different sewing patterns, so black cardstock it is. So after I'm done gluing the black cardstock to the front and the back inside cover, I just take a piece of green fabric. I think this was recycled fabric from an old Ipsy bag I received, and I simply glued it to the front and the back cover. And this I did wrap around and went ahead and also lined the spine with some random digital image paper I had left over from a previous project. And onto our next project, the specimen card. Guys, I know it feels like I find an excuse to make these in every video, but really and truly the brown packaging lends itself so nice to a frame for either a specimen card or to frame a photo. First, I'm just going to cut the packaging down so that I have two pieces equal in size with some straight edges. I kind of went back and forth about how to make this specimen card. You'll see I have a rectangle punch out in front of me. I thought I might use this to create the inner frame. Sometimes if I want to be very precise, I will do exact measurements with my ruler and use a utility knife to cut those frames out. But I thought that would be really hard, especially on this thinner, crinkly paper. And let's face it, measuring is really not that much fun. So these are very, very, very simple specimen cards. I simply folded the packaging in half and then cut out a frame with my scissors. Is this the most precise way to create a specimen card? Absolutely not. But you'll see when I show you the finished project, you're going to love the way it looks, and I don't think you'll be able to tell that I took the easy way out. Next, we are going to be putting some plant material into the shrink wrap. We are going to pretend like it is poisonous plant to keep with our spooky theme. I'm also going to be dropping some gold foil flakes in here from Michael's. I believe it's by Recollections. I always try and include the products I use in the description box. If you have any questions about anything you see here in the video today, please feel free to drop me a comment. I do the best I can to answer them, and I read all of them. So thank you for those of you who take the time to interact and engage and ask questions. I absolutely love it. Finally, I ran the specimen card through the sewing machine. I think by far it's the best way to make specimen cards. I hate having to deal with the ucky glue mucking up the inside frame. There are some adhesive dots and the little adhesive glue tape dispenser things that you can buy. Those work as well. But truth be told, I just like the look of the sewn specimen card. And finally, for our last project, we are going to be utilizing the brown packaging in this collaged layout. This is one of my fall harvest / Halloween journals that I have had on my shelf for a couple of years now. I have no excuse as to why I haven't finished it. In a recent video with you guys, I did a flip through of 4 unfinished Halloween / fall themed journals I have, and I did do a little bit of journaling in that video. If you would like to see that and what else is in this journal, I will link that above and in the description box. That video is basically a quick flip of 4 journals that are 90% of the way done, so it offers a ton of already completed Halloween themed layout ideas. If that is what you are looking for, go check it out. I promise you it's worth watching. If only I could make them 100% complete, right? But that is one of my toxic traits, having about 300 incomplete projects going at all times. I'm sure many of you can relate. So this layout using the brown packaging is going to be a very simple layout. I just started by ripping off a piece of the packaging and just gluing it down. That's as easy as can be. It's a very kind of abstract decorative theme going on with the brown packaging. I'm not quite sure. I know I did some spraying with distress ink. I think I flicked around some gesso, some white gesso, and I did some stamping, and it's one of the Tim Holtz stamp sets. It might be called Glitch. I'm not sure, but to me, the stamp kind of looks like a moon, and I thought that would probably look good next to the cat. So I decided to do some kind of sky moon. Oh, there actually is a moon now that I'm looking at this video. I'm doing a voiceover if you couldn't tell, and I'm looking at the cat, and I'll be doggone, next to the cat there is a moon. So we're going to do some planetarium themed spooky layout here. So I have this Tim Holtz ephemera pack here, and it's very like fall themed. There are mushroom, plants, butterflies, and since we're doing an outdoor kind of spooky layout, I thought perfect. I will get a plant that kind of looks like a poisonous plant, and I also decided I wanted to take a piece of dried plant material next to it to kind of make it a little bit more lifelike and interactive, and put a piece of washi tape over that. Okay, so I'm a little bit ahead of myself as per usual. I do some more distressing to the paper just with some sprayed instant coffee, which I love having on hand, guys. If you have not made a bottle of instant coffee that you have sitting on your desk right now, you are missing out. Instant coffee, dissolve it in water, a lot of instant coffee, less water to make it more concentrated, and put a little rubbing alcohol in it so it doesn't get moldy, and you have yourself a great way to distress anything in front of you with very little effort. Next, after distressing the page further, I just glue down a butterfly. I want this to, I don't know, it's just a collage layout. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing intricate or really planned out. I just want to show you how great that this brown recycled packaging can look on a page, especially when you've done a little prep and you've distressed it. It can truly look amazing and be the background and an incredible base for really anything you want to create. I'm sure you guys have seen by now, but one of my favorite ways to emphasize a focal point is just by going around it with some charcoal pencil. Very, very simple technique. You're literally just outlining an object with this charcoal pencil and activating it with water, whether you do that with your finger, with a Q-tip, or just these water-filled paintbrushes like I am. It's a great way to make things stand out. Okay, and now finally we can secure our plant down with washi tape. I always go over my washi tape with a glue stick just to ensure that it stays down. Washi tape was never meant to be permanent, and if you think it's going to stick without anything else, you are going to be disappointed every time. I'm telling you, the only thing that are certainties in life are death, taxes, and that washi tape is not going to stick to the paper for very long if you don't apply some glue over it. I'm just adding some final finishing touches. I don't really know the purpose of this page. I don't know that it has a purpose, but I felt like it was a little bit incomplete, and so I decided, because I glued or I washied that plant down, I decided to find a little bit about a poisonous plant, since this is a Halloween journal after all and a spooky theme layout, and wrote a little bit about one of the poisonous plants that I found. Don't be afraid to write in your journals, guys. I promise you, you're not going to ruin anything. Even if you don't have the best handwriting, I'm telling you, it just looks cool. If you're not sure what to write about and don't want to write about any personal memories, maybe research a theme, do a Google search, learn something, write it down. Honestly, that's what I like to do if I'm not really sure what to write about. Just like I did here on this page. It was spooky themed. I really wasn't going to journal about any personal experiences, so I thought, okay, well, I'm putting some plant material down, why don't I do a little research about a poisonous plant? So guys, I hope you enjoyed making these brown paper crafts as much as I did today, and I hope that I inspired you to use that shipping paper instead of just throwing it in the trash. It is such a great craft supply. Here are a few of the things we made today: the collaged layout, the journal cover, the specimen card, and the 2 journaling cards. Though this truly is just the beginning, there is so many things that you can do with this brown paper supply. It is the gift that keeps on giving. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and found value in it, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you the next time.